All righty, welcome everyone. My name is David Zimmerman. I'm the founder of DeFi University. This is the daily market wrap, the biggest charts in 30 minutes. And we're going to run on through a couple of digital assets here, and then we're going to take a look, if we've got time, at the S&P and the Nasdaq. We're going to check in on a handful of Mag 7 items, and let's just go ahead and get started. So this is Bitcoin on the weekly. And I just want to hone in on this here. Take a look. See right here, the 2017 high. Connect this to the March 2021 high and extend to the right. And we've got, this is the all-time high up here. So the all-time high is, at a level of resistance. This is trend line resistance. And I want you to just keep this in mind as we start taking a look at some of the other digital assets during today's call. So we've got resistance up here. Now we've got support all the way down here at the 200-week moving average. Now, here's the thing. In previous Bitcoin bear markets, we've seen Bitcoin, if I go ahead and grab my arrow tool here, we've seen Bitcoin break below this 200-week moving average during the bear market. And if this period here is this period here, then we could be about to see Bitcoin over the next several weeks or maybe a couple of months move down below its 200-week moving average. Now, I think that the trend here is clearly down. So if we just go ahead and define what is the definition of a downtrend, well, it's defined as a series of lower highs and lower lows. And that is the definition of a downtrend. And Bitcoin is clearly in a macro downtrend since October, that all-time high at 126. So if Bitcoin is in a downtrend and the Bitcoin bear market, we are clearly in a Bitcoin bear market, well, then resistance for Bitcoin on a rally, resistance would come in up here at 74K, 74, 75, something like that. That's where resistance comes in. Now, support comes in at the lows that were put in just 2 weeks ago, down there at 60K. And, better support would come in at the 200-week moving average. So we've got Bitcoin between 58 and 74. That's basically the zone that Bitcoin is now in, resistance above, support below. Now, my expectation for Bitcoin over the next several weeks, several months, is for it to repeat exactly what it did last cycle once that horizontal support was broken. And let me go ahead and draw that in real quick. So last cycle, the level of horizontal support was right here at roughly 30K, 29K or so. Once that horizontal support was broken, then it was just a matter of a couple of weeks until Bitcoin was. Oh, let me go ahead and delete that. Sorry, guys. I got some stuff going on from the Strike API. So what we got going on right here is this level of horizontal support. So when that horizontal support broke last cycle, then it was just a matter of a couple of weeks until Bitcoin was able to check in with its 200-week moving average and eventually broke down below its 200-week moving average, and at its trough was able to get down below the 200-week moving average by 30%. Now, I'm not convinced that we're going to see Bitcoin break below its 200-week moving average by 30% this cycle, because we didn't get the euphoria to the upside that we got last cycle. This is a real parabola. So that parabola that formed last cycle, we didn't get one of those this cycle. We got more of a start and stop. So we didn't get a true parabola. There was no real euphoria. Bitcoin peaked on apathy, as Benjamin Cowan likes to say. I think he's right. And so if Bitcoin peaked on apathy this cycle, this bull cycle, then during the bear cycle, well, I would expect there to be, not severe depression. So maybe Bitcoin is able to get down below its 200-week moving average, but not by 30% like it did last cycle. Maybe Bitcoin gets down below the 200-week moving average, but by only 15 or 16%. So that would bring Bitcoin down to roughly 50K or so. So for me, I am going to be a buyer of Bitcoin at 50K. Notice we've also got some horizontal support at 50K. We've got this, what was resistance. When it broke, it became support, acted as support, during that first real correction in 2024. And now I expect that if Bitcoin breaks its 200-week moving average, that 50K will act as support again. So I'm going to be a buyer of Bitcoin down here at 50K. But keep in mind, I just want you to remember as we move on to Ethereum from here, take a look here one more time. The 2017 high, the 2021 high, the 2025 high, resistance, this level of trend line resistance. So keep that in mind. Let's switch gears on over to ETH. So Ethereum did not test its upper level of resistance. So right here, there's the 2021 high. Here is the 2017 high right there. You could say that is, I think that's 2017. Maybe Jan 2018, Dece 2017. So there's the anchor point. There's the next higher high. But ETH did not get the real move up to test resistance. And my expectation on the next bull run in 2027 into 2028 is that maybe ETH is able to make it all the way up here to test resistance at like $10,000 or something like that. So what I'm thinking here for ETH is, first and foremost, what do you guys think that ETH is going to do if Bitcoin makes a move to 50K? Well, if Bitcoin makes a move to 50K, then I would not expect this level of trend line support to hold. If Bitcoin moves to 50, then I don't think that $1,600 for ETH holds as support. My expectation would be something much closer to $1,000, like maybe $1,100 or maybe $1,200, like a slightly higher low than the low that was put in last cycle at, if I check the chart, the low that was put in last cycle was at 881 on the Binance data. So let's call it $900 for ETH. If ETH is going to break 1,600, that would mean Bitcoin likely is pushing down below its 200-week moving average. I think that would mean that ETH could get it all the way down here to like $1,100 or $1,200, something like that. But I think that would be a fantastic buying opportunity because there's a lot that's being built on Ethereum. And so if I'm able to pick up ETH for $1,200, I am going to, because it would not surprise me during the next bull run to see ETH rally all the way up to like $9,500 or something like that. This would make sense as resistance. And we've seen that pattern play out before with Bitcoin, where we had the 2017 anchor, the 2021 next higher high. And then if we get a real sharp move up in ETH in 2027, maybe $9,800 is a level, like a target for ETH. That's just my speculation here. But I think in the short term, I think that ETH probably continues its journey lower. The next level of support comes in at 1,600, and we've got two levels of resistance above. We've got the 200-week moving average at 2,460, and then we've got this horizontal, what is now resistance at 2,650. So a couple levels of resistance above, a level of support below, a further level of support below. But ultimately, I am bullish on ETH. In the immediate term, however, over the next couple of months, quite bearish. I am short ETH. Here's Sol. So Solana, this pattern that we see playing out right now, a little bit of a flag. It's trying to flag off on the weekly. But take a look at what Sol did last bear market. So let me go ahead and grab this arrow tool. So the level of horizontal support for Sol last cycle came in at $75 or $76. Now, this cycle, that level of horizontal support comes in at $95 or $96 for Sol. So this breakdown, especially right here, this break below 96, to me, that is the same as this break below 76 last cycle. And the last cycle, that Sol broke its important horizontal support on the way down, Sol ended up making a beeline for 30 bucks. So it would not surprise me to see Sol eventually make its way to 30 bucks again. Now, will Sol break into this zone down here? Your guess is as good as mine. I think probably yes, but I will definitely be a buyer of Sol around $30, $35 or so. Um, I'm not convinced that Solana is going to just, vanish or anything like that. I think that, it's probably got another couple cycles left in it, and that would give it plenty of time to actually build something more than a meme coin casino. So it looks as though Sol is doing its best with these wicks. So these wicks, it almost looks like a tweezer, but not quite. So a tweezer would be a pretty reliable bottoming formation. If this wick was just a little bit longer, then this would look like a tweezer bottom. We've got a good example of a tweezer bottom in Tau that we're going to take a look at. But on the way up, it looks like there is resistance at 96, resistance at the 200-week moving average, which right now comes in at 104. So this zone right here for Sol, right here, that's going to be some significant resistance. I think there's likely to be a lot of people who would want to get out of their Solana positions at $95 or $100 if given the opportunity. So I don't expect that Solana would be able to break above this level of resistance, but even if it is able to get up there, that would be a move of like 20%. So that would be a pretty big move. I'm dubious of Solana's ability to even make that move. So I am short Sol. Let's take a look at some alts. Let's start with Tau. This has been very strong over the last couple of days here. And, if we go ahead and draw in some trend line resistance here, something like this, well, it was actually able to break above it just briefly. The only problem with this trend line resistance is its angle. Very steep angles like this tend to be less valuable in terms of their predictive power. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I think the better level is 170. I think that this level here is probably the better level to watch. And you see this candlestick formation here where we've got these two long wicks. This is called a tweezer. So this is a tweezer bottom. It's a bottoming formation. But remember, Tau is also a digital asset, okay? So if Bitcoin breaks below its 200-week moving average, then it won't matter that there's a little tweezer bottom here. Tau will get sold along with everything else. And Tau is actually sitting now below what I thought was going to be a level of resistance. Because if we zoom in to the daily, you'll be able to see the breakdown. So here is that level of support, and here's the break right there. So you see that? Let me go ahead and mark that. There's the support at 207. There's the break of support. Now, when the support broke, we got a retest. And that retest, we saw rejection. And so now Tau is just, putting in this, what looks like a tweezer, on the upside this time. So big wicks. Big wicks tells me selling pressure. Now, this has been a pretty decent bounce. Tau and Aave have put in pretty decent bounces. They're about, they're two of some of the only alts that have put in like real legit bounces. So it'll be interesting to see if this is able to get above 207. But I am short Tau. And, this move up here, it hurt, but I'm still short. So let's take a look at SUI, SUI. And real quick on Tau one more time. The level where I'll be a buyer of Tau is 90. Between 35 and 90, this zone down here, I'm a buyer down here. Because look, if Bitcoin breaks its 200-week and ETH moves below 1,600 and Solana makes a move down towards $30 or $40, I have a hard time seeing Tau hold above 90. So I'll dip my toes in and nibble on the long side at 90, but maybe in greater size down here at like 40 or $50. And, Tau is an interesting project, but it's still a digital asset. So if we get some real move, a bigger move lower out of Bitcoin, I think Tau gets sold along with everything else. Now here's SUI, SUI. And SUI right now, just putting in a little bit of a bear flag as it pushes higher. And let me go ahead and delete this. Now, the flash crash lows on October 10th for SUI were devastating for a lot of people because SUI moved from $3.50 down to 58 cents in the matter of like an hour or two. So what that tells me is that this is illiquid, that it's being propped up. This is a pretty illiquid token right here. And, this level of support, if we zoom in, so let me just go ahead and zoom in to $1.30. This was, let me grab my arrow tool real quick. So this was an important level of support. One touch, two, three, and then when it broke, this is now significant resistance here. So SUI, perking back up on the upside, but man, I would not be surprised to see this just fail and be down at 58 cents in a hurry. So SUI, I think, could have a future for sure. So I'll be a buyer of SUI down here at like 35 cents, 38 cents, something like that. So this is the level where I will be a buyer of SUI, and that would be, an additional 50% or so, closer to 60% on the downside. So SUI to me is a sell, and I am short SUI. So here's everyone's favorite do nothing protocol, XRP. And when we just take a look at this pattern here, let me go ahead and remove some of these horizontals so this is a bit cleaner. But to me, XRP is, look, big bounce. If we zoom in here and we just take a look at this, so XRP, big bounce. This is a horrible looking wick, really ugly looking candle here. And, it looks like XRP could be about to just give it up because this candle wick tells me a ton of selling pressure up above $1.50. So a ton of selling pressure. And this is a daily. So if we actually zoom out from a daily to a weekly, let's just take a look, see what we see here. So one thing that's super important whenever I'm taking a look at these digital asset charts is when you see a big sharp move up like this, well, there can also be a big sharp move down on the way back down because there's no volume here. This is just slicing through, it's very fast. So you can see the same thing on the way back down. Now, notice where XRP found support, right at its 200-week moving average at $1.12. So that is some decent support for XRP. But since this level has already been tested, if XRP gets back down here, then I would expect that it would probably make a move down towards 75 cents. So, to me, XRP is a sell. I am short XRP. And the move just down to 75 cents, if it makes it, would be 50% on the downside. So that's my expectation. But for XRP, I am not a buyer of XRP at any price. So I think XRP, if it goes to 75 cents, I'll take some profits on my shorts. But I would not be surprised to see it down at 30 cents, this bear cycle, because I just can't figure out what it is that these guys actually do. And if I can't figure out the business model, then, it just smells fishy to me. So let's take a look at some other, higher vol alts, something like Arbitrum. Again, can't figure out why this even exists, but on the way up, if ARB were to bounce here, then I think up here at 17 cents, that would be some significant resistance. But that would be a monster move. A 50% move on a bounce, is that a possibility for ARB? Sure. This is a super high volatility alt. So if it gets some momentum going on the upside, it could definitely make its way all the way back up to 17 cents. I doubt it though. I really doubt it. And my bias here is for further downside out of ARB. I would not be surprised to see ARB at a couple of pennies, maybe 2 or 3 cents. But here's the thing though, if we just zoom out a little bit, even though we've got this clear downtrend, and here's a high, a lower high, a lower high, a low, a lower low, a lower low, I think ARB probably puts in another lower low at like 2 or 3 cents. But that's within this larger bullish descending wedge pattern. So get a bounce at 3 cents, and if ARB can break out, I think it could really rip higher. This is a bullish price action pattern. So if we get a move down to 2 cents, I would actually pick up some ARB just for a moonshot to maybe play it up to like 60 cents or something like that. So that's the way that I'm thinking about Arbitrum here. I can't quite tell why this even exists, but it's exhibiting a bullish pattern, a bullish price action pattern over the last couple of years here. But I expect that it will continue its downtrend in the immediate term. I'll be a buyer at 2 or 3 cents though. Here's Aave. So Aave, big bounce over the last couple of days. Now notice it did break this trend line support, and it was able to reclaim trend line support. So what we could do here is zoom into a daily. And from the daily, what we can do is we can redraw that trend line support. Let's just see if anything jumps out real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and anchor to that low, and I'm going to drag this back to right there. That's not very good support. So I'm going to delete that trend line now. And in my opinion, what are we looking at here with the Aave token? So I'm going to go ahead and take this, and I'll leave it right there actually, because there's the breakdown, there's some support, there's the breakdown, and we've got this false breakout here. So where is the level, where's the buy zone for ARB? Well, in my opinion, this is Aave, excuse me. Where's the buy zone for Aave? Down in this region, this green box down here, between 46 and 80 bucks. This is the buy zone for me on Aave. And this is one of the best money markets in DeFi. Very, very reliable. So I think that there's definitely a bright future ahead for Aave, but for the Aave token, that's a different deal. So I would start to think about buying at $80, but I'd be a buyer on Aave down to 50. And this will never be a large portion of my portfolio, just something that I think this dApp, this protocol, survives and thrives. And so I'd be willing to have some exposure to Aave. Now, BNB, I think that Binance is a bad actor in the crypto space. But even with that being said, this has been a very sharp move on the downside, basically just straight down. And, we also got this false breakout here on BNB. That is a false breakout. And so my expectation for BNB is that if this support breaks, and hey, if Bitcoin pushes down to its 200-week moving average again, then I would expect this support to break for BNB. Then the next level of support would come in here at the big round number, let's call it 500 bucks. I don't think that support would hold if Bitcoin breaks its 200-week moving average. So really, the next level of support for me would come in all the way down here at like $200. So that would be, in line with the bear market lows from last cycle. I would love to see Binance go away because, how many times over the last couple of years has Binance and Wintermute, have they together been the reason why tokens have just crashed? Like so many times. So, October 10th just being the most recent. Actually, I think you could probably say that, the big move that we saw a couple of weeks ago, this big move out of Bitcoin, I think you could say that, Binance and Wintermute over the weekend, because it really picked up steam on a Saturday, they like to wait until liquidity is thin to start really dumping. And they are not an actor, they are not a positive actor in this space. So BNB to 200. And let's take a look at Arrow. Here is Arrow. And Arrow is a reward token for that Aerodrome decentralized exchange on the base chain. And take a look at this level of support. It's been touched 3 times. So that level of support comes in, if I just move this a little bit, comes in at roughly 28 cents. So once, twice, 3 times, but look on the way up. So on the way up, when you got that first big pump in February of 2024, just a couple of weeks after Coinbase announced their investment in Aerodrome through Coinbase Ventures, got the first big pump out of the Aero token. This is a reward token on a VE33 DEX, which means it's worthless and inflationary. There's no reason to hold this thing. So I think Arrow goes eventually to 12 cents. And I think it could slice down from 28 cents to 12 cents in a hurry. Because look at this right here. This was straight up. So not a whole lot of volume there. You got one test of support, the second test of support, the third test of support. The more times a level of support is tested, the more likely it becomes that it breaks. And I think that if or when 28 cents breaks and we see Arrow break down, I think it moves straight to 13 cents. So I am short Arrow, and like Aerodrome as a DEX, meh. Like I don't want to earn Arrow. So here's Fartcoin. Fartcoin is just a straight up meme coin, and this one has an interesting pattern here with these 3 tests. So let me just go ahead and mark this. So right there, there's the first test of this level of support at 16 cents. Here's the second test. Here's the third. So remember, the more times a level of support is tested, the more likely it becomes that it breaks. So my expectation is that Fartcoin this cycle goes to 0. And that's my hope, because I don't want memes. I want stuff that actually has real utility in crypto. I'm really looking for the memes to die off. And, maybe Doge can stay, maybe, but the rest of them need to go away because so many people have been hurt so badly by, just FOMOing into these meme coins only to see their money vanish into thin air. So I think that the days of like meme coin casinos on Solana, that needs to end and never come back. So I'm short Fartcoin, and I think a break of 16 cents, and this thing goes to 2 cents in a hurry. So I am short Fartcoin. We can take a look here real quick at the S&P and the Nasdaq. Why don't we check in with the Nasdaq? So this pattern, in my opinion, looks really interesting because check this out. Let me go ahead and draw this in. You got the double top from that was 2024 and then early 2025, February 2025. And then if I go ahead and just remove that 200-day and throw down the 100-day, you had the trend line support break. You had the 100-day moving average fail, and that was the first leg down. It started at the end of February last year. Take a look at this pattern that we've got playing out now in the NASDAQ. Double top, just like here, double top. You got the trend line support broken to the downside with the retest and the failure. And you've got the 100-day moving average broken to the downside, retested, and held as resistance. So is this the first leg down? Just like last February, we saw the first leg down? I certainly think so, because when I take a look at all of these Mag 7 items, they're all exhibiting similar patterns. Multiple tests of support on the way up, a failure of support, a retest, the resistance holds, and backing away. That's Tesla. We do the same thing here with Google. Trendline support, failed, retest, held as resistance, backing away. NVIDIA is in a channel, not a straight up trend line. So again, rejected at the top of the channel, backing away. Microsoft, barely clinging to support. Apple, big rejection at the end of last week and back down below those highs from December of 2024, which kind of makes this entire pattern look like a big false breakout. We've got Amazon gapping lower after earnings and just getting close to support. You've got Meta here moving down towards support after gapping up and giving it all back after reporting. And then, of course, Oracle, the software play, levering up its cash flows to get a piece of the AI data center market. And hey, you know what? If Oracle breaks this level of support here, then I think that would coincide with Bitcoin making a move down below its 200-week moving average. So this to me looks like we're starting to, build out the beginnings of a bear flag. 74K on Bitcoin is resistance, with that $60,000 level acting as support. So I am short all of these digital assets. I want to thank everyone for joining live. It's always a pleasure to be able to go through charts with you guys like this. Now, if you're interested in taking a look at what we do at DeFi University, go ahead and hop on over to the school. It's all free. All the educational material is totally free. So school.com/DeFi University. Take a look at the website where you can learn about what it is that we do, defiuniversity.xyz. I've built educational material for crypto and DeFi that starts from the DeFi High School, which is beginner focused content, all the way up to DeFi University, which is more advanced content. It's all free. It's all free. So if you're interested in leveling up your skill set, take a look at courses.defiuniversity.xyz. And I will see you guys all tomorrow at, tomorrow is going to be at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So hope that you guys have a great rest of your evening. See you tomorrow.